What does it say?
You're silly. You can't read it from there. It says recording.
Maybe.
Opening sentence that captures attention.
If you want to, you can walk in while you say it.
Okay, that's kind of fun. It's like Mr. Rogers. Hello, Mr. J.
Hello, friend. So here's the quick intro for today's video. We have been in a series on using Jest to test this little app that I'm whipped together in Firebase. Really, the focus has been Jest, and we've touched some various aspects. We've touched some various aspects of spies, mocks, assertions, it versus test a little bit, stuff like that. But today, we're honing in, we're zooming in on what I posted a video that was only 2.5 minutes on, called Snapshots, Jest snapshotting. It's not completely unique to Jest, and there's some other places that do snapshots, and in some cases it's visual pixel snapshots. Today we're talking about markup snapshots, or I should say string snapshots. And the reason we're doing it is because we've had a lively debate in another place besides this universe.
We're gonna have a debate today, right?
We're gonna have a debate today about it.
Yeah.
We got some solid arguments. I think both of us are leaning towards the same place, but I might lean one way a little bit more than BZ. You found an interesting thing about snapshots.
The history?
Yeah.
While we were preparing for this debate, I decided to look up the oldest video I could find on YouTube about snapshot testing. Granted, this wasn't a grand research project, but what I did find was a guy, and I don't remember his name. Probably should remember his name. But he is an intern, or he was an intern at Facebook, and he's telling the story about Jest in an interview. And he's telling the story that, you know, this is, and I'm paraphrasing, please correct me in the comments. Like, really, I want to start a flame war here. So please, I encourage you, sharpen this edge here. But just from memory, I was an intern at Facebook. We had this test suite going. Tests were really slow. Because the tests were really slow, people weren't writing tests. And he says, oh my gosh, this is a problem. I want to make it faster. And so he took up writing or rewriting Jest. And part of that is where snapshots came about. And the thing that I thought was interesting was he mentioned that the managers were saying there wasn't enough test coverage. Right? There's not enough test coverage. And snapshots help us get the test coverage. And why I think that's interesting is sometimes I've noticed that Jest can give you a nice report that says, oh, I have 100% test coverage. But my side of the debate, I'm suspect of Jest because it's just validating markup.
You're suspect of Jest snapshotting?
Just snapshotting. I think Jest runs fast, and I love that about it, actually. It's a great testing platform.
The output's pretty phenomenal, too.
Yeah, the runner?
Yep.
Like the command line output? Yeah. All that to say, whenever there's something I can't quite understand in Grok, I think it's interesting to go back and look at the history and see why. I keep asking this question, why? So a lot of my side of this debate is really just, but why?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the more we've talked about it, and the more I've been learning about React, which is a Facebook child, I've been seeing a lot of simple components. In fact, I'm looking at a functional, stateless functional components, which is the hot new rage for some of the more simple components within React. First of all, when you start with an app shell in React, you're pretty much locking yourself in to make everything underneath it components. And some of it's just organization, some of it makes sense to make them actual components.
Okay.
But for cleanliness, sometimes you end up with this really small component that's just a simple, dumb, stateless renderer of simple props.
Right. And by props, he means properties.
Yeah.
In case you're not a React fanatic like myself.
So think of yourself in the situation of you're programming. You made 3 or 4 dumb stateless functional components in your app shell,
also known as markup.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
HTML.
Yeah, this is but it's on the front end, so it's not.
So what we're really talking about is these functions that just return HTML,
Pretty much,
without logic.
And now you run your test suite again, and you realize, oh shoot, now those aren't covered. How am I going to cover them if all they're doing is displaying one property from one object inside HTML?
A property inside HTML, if you come from the MVC world, you're looking at the view, and that data is a model, right? Mm-hmm. So when we say props or property, you can think model. It's going in markup. Traditionally in MVC, that's what that is.
And I'll try in the video. I'll try to zoom in a few of these just to show what it looks like this. I mean, this is a pretty good example over here on the right. It's not even showing a property. It's just a super simple thing with one click handler. But how would you test the output of that? And that's a big assumption right there. Okay, but I guess I just say all that to say, there's a lot of this in React, this type of rendering, this type of simple template and model together, and you end up with less test coverage unless you use snapshots on it. And that makes sense how that might have been born out of that new paradigm in front-end frameworks.
Imagine I'm a manager of the business, and Josh is writing all this front-end code.
And I say, man, it's so simple it doesn't even need tests. What would you say?
In the old days, you wouldn't be required to have tests, because you wouldn't be writing functions. You would just be writing the markup. And now you're just taking the markup and putting it in a function, and your manager says, Josh, there's no test coverage here.
That was a key right there.
We have a metric, Josh. Josh, we have to have 85% test coverage on all our code written.
100%.
Now, 100% test coverage on all our code written. Is that a dog fight?
Yeah.
Do you need to go look at that?
No. It's more of a dog playing, and you have to rip them apart.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
You said one thing. I just want to point it out again. What used to be a template layer, literally the V and the MVC on the server side, mixed with the model that you would not test usually. There are, like in Java, there are free marker unit tests, etc. But generally, historically, it hasn't been tested as much as Java unit tests or JavaScript unit tests. And so,
because we usually didn't put logic in there.
That too.
And the logic we put in there was just view logic, like if this model has a value, show this markup. If it doesn't, don't.
If it has more than one loop through, or has more than 0 loop
a loop,
through them.
Yeah. To be fair, that is logic.
True.
I acknowledge that.
True.
Yeah.
But now that it's, like you said, now it's in the front end, we've hidden it inside of a function, and functions have to be tested.
That's right.
Okay. You also had the point of, and I kind of brought it up a little bit, in the fact that once you do an app shell in React, pretty much everything below it is going to be a component, or inside of a component.
Okay.
That might go to what you were thinking about in the single page app world.
Full disclosure.
You've never built a spa?
I have built a spa. Full disclosure, I'm not intimately familiar with React. And that's where some of my suspect comes, is when I'm looking at a new technology, I say, how does this fit into what I know about the principles of software engineering? I am a novice at React as a library or framework.
Okay, I have a question about the general concept of testing layouts.
Okay.
Should you test layouts?
Historically, I have not. And the people I have worked with have decided not to, unless you put business domain logic in the layout. We had a rule at one place I worked where you had to write tests for all business domain logic, and view tests were hard before Jest that forced us as programmers to put all our business logic into classes and into our business application in the services that the controller relies on. And the controller's job was to populate the model. Right. And then the model is just data, like as you say, dumb data, that just goes into the view. And with that, everybody was happy, saying, it's not about people being happy. With that, we had good software development practices. We had good test coverage of our logic, and we didn't ship bugs out. And we had that place had a good application architecture too because of it.
That's a shining testament.
I really liked working with those guys.
You've got a good separation of concerns.
Yeah.
The markup is just markup. Although, styling can affect what happens, you might be testing the behavior in other ways. For instance, you might have an integration test, not even an end-to-end test, but an integration test where you're mixing two components together and you click on one and make sure that something happens to the other one.
Sure.
So you're still doing behavior tests apart from your unit tests of logic and the model, etc.
Well, specifically that is an event. Usually it's communication through events.
Mm-hmm.
It can be unit tested.
True.
Yeah, outside of a snapshot. It's possible.
So you have a good example of this. A nice, short and sweet example. It has to do with our sponsor actually today.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a cliffhanger, and we'll talk about the sponsor after we go over this little bit of code. Brian, take us away. How does this relate to what we're talking about today?
This is an example of a Christmas tree purchasing process to see if your Christmas tree is affordable or not, and different things are going to be rendered in the header of your web page if your Christmas tree is affordable or not. This all started as a tagged template literal, and there was what I saw as business logic inside that tagged template literal.
Mm-hmm.
What I've done is taken the business logic out of it and put it into functions so that they could be tested separately from the markup. You can see my comment on line 18 through 21. Notice that the logic has been removed from the markup and the template is once again declarative.
And historically, that logic dealing with the model of how the model is presented to the view layer would have been done on the back end. But now more and more of that is being moved to the front end. However, you can still use this pattern and unit test those model-related attributes before the template.
On the front end.
Right.
Yeah. The tagged template literal that we're looking at is the header. It's the header of the Grinch of Christmas Tree Future. And you can notice in it, there's the wrapper, and then there's a function that says, hey, render this stuff. And there's a function that says, this.render header. If you look at line 9, render header has more logic in it. Do you know how you can identify logic really easily, Mr. J? If. That's my favorite trick. If a function has if in it, you've got behavior and you've got two contexts. That means you've got two code execution paths that the computer could follow.
Even if there's no else, just by adding if, there's one more thing that it could be.
There's a state that it could be in and a state that it couldn't be in. Maybe state's not the technically correct word, but there's a path it could take, and there's another path it could take. That's really it. All I did was move the behavior out of the template, out of the markup, try to create the markup so that it's declarative. And you can see the note there that the technical definition of declarative is that it expresses the logic of a computation without describing its control flow. The if is the control flow.
Say it again.
It expresses the logic of the computation without describing its control flow. The if is the control flow. Look at line 22. You don't know about the control flow that the application is going to go through to render the header. You can read that though, and you can say, this is going to render a header, and I can trust that.
If we were really good right now, we would have the 2 unit tests available. The unit test suggested here, that's testing just the logic, but visualize this with us for a second. You set up the simple unit test with the data of this .Christmas tree and this .Christmas tree price. You inject that into the test and you assert that it's going to come back true or false based upon that data. That's a pretty simple unit test. It fully tests
Certainly.
that is affordable because it's a simple function. As opposed to the snapshot version, which would say, render this whole template and take a snapshot of the markup, and if it looks right, or if it looks like it was before, it passes. If it doesn't look like it was before, it doesn't pass. But where is the context there? You don't necessarily know why it failed or passed. You just know that the markup looks the same.
Maybe we can do a follow-up where we have some snapshot tests written, and some unit tests written for this. This is the more we talk about this, it's turning out to be a really interesting conversation and piece of code.
So with that setup, I think Brian, you did a really good job here setting up when you could and when you don't necessarily need to. And the historical background of not always needing to test as much, if at all, the template layer, because it was set up in such a way that the model was tested in the controller, or the model data could be trusted because of the unit tests that were set up in the controller. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, or your application. It doesn't have to be in the controller. I'm a big fan of composition. Your business has services, is what I've heard them called, but just supporting business domain functionality. And that's another nice thing is, if you notice, is affordable is now taken out of your JavaScript template literal. Which means is affordable can very easily be used or composed in other parts of your application.
That's a really good segue, Brian, to our sponsor for the day. And it's exciting. Actually, as we talk, it's 2 days before Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
And I may be publishing this tomorrow, so you might have like a half a day left to use this sponsor. So
this is a Christmas surprise for you.
This is a Christmas surprise. In our area, sadly, there was a big fire up north. We live a little bit of ways from Oregon, where a lot of the Christmas trees are imported from. And just some other extenuating circumstances mean there weren't as many Christmas trees this year. So yesterday, my family and I went to go to the first place that's got a lot of stars on Google. They had 3 or 4 3-foot Christmas trees. Not so great, but he was really nice. He said, go to Bambi's in Roseville. We took the 30-minute drive to Bambi's with excitement in our hearts. We didn't have any eggnog or hot chocolate. We didn't need it because we were filled with Christmas spirit.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
And we pulled up to see a site that should be in the movies. There was a 50-gallon drum with a fire inside.
This is your sponsor spiel?
Yes. Which was, it looked horrific as far as the scene. It looked like an apocalyptic scene, but the warmth from the fire was really nice. It was great. Then we kind of head over to the trees, which we expected to see some 6-foot, 7-foot trees. We only saw 6 or 7 trees, and they were ginormous in multiple ways. They were 12 feet tall and $350 or so. Fortunately, we found one that was a little bit cheaper than that, and I offered them about 35% of what the sticker shock was.
Ooh, you negotiated.
I did. Well, he told me right away we're giving 10-20% off. So I was just like, well, I'm not going to pay anything near this, so would you take this? And I was apologetic when I asked, but they're like, sure, take it away.
Yeah.
So go to Bambi's, especially if you've only got like 2 hours left before Christmas and you don't mind a dead tree that might have some brown on it. Because they're the only place left that has Christmas trees. That's our sponsor for the day.
Bambi's Christmas trees.
We're sticking to it. So I have a couple questions for you, Brian.
I have a couple answers for you, Josh.
Is there any...
And one of them maybe, I don't know.
Let's say that snapshot testing... let's take out the the PR, the pull requests for a second. Let's take out
That whole conversation.
let's take out the continuous integration that runs these tests. Let's just talk about the user with Jest watch running, so that every time they make a change, the test runs again, and they get an output of unit tests that have failed and snapshots that have failed, which are unit tests have failed. Is there any value whatsoever to a developer in snapshots for that case?
For your workflow?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't found any value in snapshot testing specifically. I like to, in our example, I like to move my logic out of the view and have it unit tested, and I do find value in that. However, when I'm writing HTML, it's usually intentional.
True.
That's the declarative nature of it. It's like, I want a div here, and then if my test breaks because I wrote a div, then it's not really useful to me. And the really smart people at Facebook, I think, they realize that that's not really useful to interrupt your workflow with a failed test because you intentionally put a div there. Don't they have a feature that it'll just automatically update your output for you?
Well, when you're in watch mode, you can just hit the U key or some other keys as well in certain circumstances and just rewrite the snapshot if you intended it to be that way.
Right.
The diff is phenomenal, so you can really easily see what was changed, a plus, minus, green, red type thing. And if it looks good, just do it. So when you're watching and you're making the change, that's usually really easy to figure out the context and say, yeah, it's good, hit you. Full disclosure here, I have at least once in my career fat-fingered or accidentally hit a key while I was editing something without seeing that I hit that key. And then later saw that funky character somewhere show up in the view where it was not supposed to be. That's one valid reason, again assuming that there's no maintenance cost to this whatsoever, where seeing a change in the snapshot could be helpful for the developer.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
All right. I won this argument about snapshots today. Just for the
Josh won the debate. It's already off, man.
Shoot, I wonder how much it'll just be like a shot of us frozen. I won the debate. That's what we were discussing about. I thought you.
No, that was not a high five. That was a very tight space bow. I'm suspicious of this workflow where I intentionally change some markup, and then I press the U key to update my test output to say, "Oh yeah, this is right." You know,
it's like a double, like you see it in the demo, you see what you just changed, and then you also see a snapshot. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm suspicious of this because of a psychology phenomenon that I've heard called conditioned stimulus, and I'm guilty of this. Conditioned stimulus is where a stimulus comes in, and then a repeated stimulus comes in, and our brains are conditioned to handle that stimulus in a certain way, repeatedly.
Okay.
You can think about this in all different areas of your life. Essentially, you're just conditioning, or your brain is being conditioned to respond quickly, efficiently, in a certain way to a certain stimulus. And my suspicion with this workflow where I intentionally change markup and I go, oh, it's good, oh, it's good, oh, it's good, I change it, oh, it's good, change it, oh, it's good. So I'm doing this repeatedly throughout the day. If I fat-fingered something, I'm suspect that I may not even notice because 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100 times that test fails and I need to update it, it fails because of an intentional change I've made.
I'm following.
To markup.
I'm sticking with you.
To markup.
Yep.
And this is also true of unit tests. I want to just say that.
Good point.
It's a little different though in that markup, I'm changing it much more frequently. Do you guys agree that we change markup more frequently? I don't know. I mean, that's something that I just said, but I think it's worth looking at.
So we promised a time box. I got to go to Winco with my wife and get a Christmas turkey or something of that sort.
And I'm wrapping presents today.
And Brian's wrapping presents. We really do feel like we have a lot more to talk about. There was a really good article by Dodds, which we will link below. There was a really good article about the practical test pyramid by Martin Fowler, right? Or was it Uncle?
Martin Fowler.
We'll link that in the show notes as well. There was some really good feedback from people in another universe that we associate with about snapshots that they gave kind of the other side, the devil's advocate of why it might be helpful. So we might link in a few of those statements as well in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you, however.
Absolutely.
If you think snapshots are good, if they have proven useful over time in your business domain, we need to know that. If they have proven unuseful over time, people need to know that and why. So please comment about how snapshots are helpful or not, or neutral, in the comments below. I want to just point out really quick, Brian, that next time we're going to be doing a video, if you can make it, on accessibility. And I want to show how you can do accessibility wrong, how you can approach it from the wrong angle, test it wrongly, come out with the wrong outcome, even though you tried really hard to make your site accessible. So we're going to go over that next time. Stay tuned for that. If you want to be notified that that's coming up, make sure you subscribe here on this channel so that you see when the new videos come out. You should do that right now.
If you guys like this conversation, if you like this style of doing videos, if this is entertaining slightly and also slightly educational, it gets your mind thinking about these things at a deeper level, please subscribe. Let us know. We love the feedback. Should we sing a Christmas song?
Oh, holy night. No.
Maliki liki maka is the thing to say. Nice.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. As always, let your kids play. I'm taking Brian's line today because I like it. I think it's a wise thing to say, especially around Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking about what I should say wisely at the end of our shows.
Do your thing again.
I'm hello, friend.
Oh yeah, you're Mr. J. You're not Josh.
Goodbye, friend.
Goodbye. And goodbye to you all. Merry Christmas.
I'm gonna say that's good. We're gonna go with that. It's not bad.
Which setting are you on? You don't do the Omni, huh?
That's Omni.
I thought it was this one.
No.
You should turn that light on. Unfiltered thoughts. Help me out here.
We argue professionally.
Debate ideas.
We're on YouTube, of course. We're principal architects.
We're real programmers. Debate ideas and learn new things. That's not for...
There's a chance that our video is a little bit off kilter.
My barber, Kyle, he's not technically a barber because there's a whole licensing thing.
Because of this whole legalities.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Barbers can use razors, to shave you, right?
Which are dangerous.
And which is why you need a certification.
Makes sense.
And you have to learn all about bloodborne diseases and everything.
I understand that now.
Yeah, so he's not a barber, but he's a really interesting guy. Maybe we can talk about him on another show.
What would you call the position of the wooden mammalian back there?
Yeehaw! Join us as we learn you some programming. Really?
I don't know. That's not.
No.
It's not gonna happen.
Ding!
I'm dubbing it in.
Where's the ding?
I'm dubbing it in.
Wait, don't you need...
I don't even know where it is.
Oh, okay.
I'm dubbing it in.
You should dub it in right now. And the tagged template literal. Say that 3 times fast.
Tagged template literal. I can't do it.
Let's try it real quick. This will be good. Tag template literal. Tag template literal. Tag template literal. All right, your turn. This all started as a tagged template literal. Excuse us while we fall apart and gather ourselves here. Josh, please cut out the what a beautiful mess we are.